Hello everyone! Welcome to the European Integration course. We will continue with Chapter 6, European Integration and Enlargement. In this chapter, we will first talk about place of enlargement in the European integration, and then we will ask the questions of what does the enlargement of the European Union mean, and does the European Union need enlargement? Then we will look into the enlargement procedure and processes, and lastly, the future of European integration. Let's start with place of enlargement in European integration. The idea of enlargement can be viewed through the lens of theoretical approaches and their implementations within the context of European integration. The EU's devotion to the unification of European states has manifested itself as federalism, a model of political integration, an organization for which its embodied form is federation. In order for the federation to be permanent, there must be legal, institutional, political, and social mechanisms in place to keep the members together. Attempts to form a union in Europe re-emerged in the aftermath of the Second World War, with the first being proposed by Winston Churchill, who proposed to establish the United States of Europe in his famous speech at the University of Zurich in 1946. As the first concrete step of Churchill's proposal, the Treaty of Dunkirk was signed between France and the United Kingdom in 1947 as an agreement of alliance and mutual assistance against a possible German attack. The Merger Treaty, also known as the Treaty of Brussels, was signed in 1965. The Single European Act, or SEA, was signed in 1986. The Treaty of Amsterdam, which was signed on the 1st of June 1997. The Treaty of Nice was signed on February 26, 2001. These were all treaties concerning the enlargement and integration process of the EU. The last important stage in the EU integration process was the Treaty of Lisbon, which was signed in 2007. Let's try to answer this question. What does the enlargement of the European Union mean? As we said before, integration with new members has been a part of the Union since its establishment. In line with this idea, the founding leaders of the EU left the door open for other European countries to join the Union. The EU's response to the changes in the political picture of Europe over the last 70 years has been to support the countries aiming to join the Union, to promote their economic growth and solidarity, and to develop the democratic powers of the countries newly freed of dictatorship. There is also the question of, does the European Union need enlargement? The reasons behind enlargement can be evaluated in terms of both the EU and the candidate countries. From the EU perspective, enlargement is, above all, a political decision and is a policy implemented because it is considered to serve the EU's interests. The benefit of enlargement to the Union is that it gives it an opportunity to become a more effective and weighted economic and political actor globally. The EU uses enlargement as an effective means of expanding its influence and potency as a civilian or soft power in bringing forward economic, diplomatic, and cultural elements, as well as its gravitational pull, rather than relying on the use of force in foreign policy. With the EU's control of the enlargement process on the basis of conditionality, it is able to determine its direction, which makes enlargement a much more attractive policy instrument. Now let's talk about enlargement procedure and processes briefly. The enlargement procedure is a complex diplomatic process, one that has been shaped through successive enlargements and is now engraved in legal form. It is important to note that the enlargement is also a policy based on conditionality, meaning that the membership of a candidate country depends on its progress in fulfilling the criteria or conditions required at every stage of the accession process. Contrary to classical negotiations, bargaining and maneuvering are very limited in accession negotiations between the EU and candidate countries. In this process, the content of the criteria, standards, and implementations of the EU acquis are non-negotiable. Rather, these issues can only be negotiated in terms of the length of time to accept and put them into practice effectively. Current candidate countries of the EU are Albania, Republic of North Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Turkey. Now lastly, we should talk about the future of European integration and debates on enlargement in European public opinion. After the Second World War, the developing and industrialized countries of Western Europe were in need of migration and labor. Since the early 1990s, discussions on migration and migrants have once again been on the agenda in many countries across Europe due to social security issues, declining birth rates, and increasing labor deficit as a result of the rapid aging population. The debate on migration and migrants, which are still serious issues within the EU, has been negatively affected by 5 basic circumstances, namely the fact that enlargement covered 10 countries on May 1st, 2004, the accession of Bulgaria and Romania to the Union, which took place immediately after the 2004 enlargement, the possible full membership of Turkey to the EU, the large amount of illegal immigration to the EU, and the high number of asylum seekers in the EU. According to a survey conducted by the EU public opinion research company Eurobarometer, in August 2019, migration is the most important concern of Europeans. It is also important to note that the EU member countries differ on the issues of European Union, European identity, and EU policies, resulting in differences in their perception of the EU and European identity. The UK, for example, has adopted the view that the EU should develop as a large free trade zone without strong political integration. In fact, the UK crossed the line by taking a step towards leaving the EU, with a referendum held on June 23, 2016. So, this is the end of our program for Chapter 6 of the European Integration course. Goodbye and see you in our next program, Chapter 7.